Hi, my name is Courtney Gage. Welcome to November's Pride meeting. Thank you so much for joining us. All I have is a small reminder tonight to remind you that Closet Clutter has been moved to Saturday, November 14th from 8 a.m. to noon. If you haven't been to Closet Clutter, or perhaps you don't know what it is actually a giant yard sale that our individual clubs and groups put on, and you can donate to your children's individual club or group. If you don't know if your child's group is participating, please ask them, or you can contact Angie Jewett. If you have any questions about Pride, feel free to visit us on our website under the Pride tab. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We hope to see you at December's meeting. We hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving as well.
Hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on how to fund your college education without going broke. As you can see from the first slide here, I have an extensive background in finance and investments over the years, both teaching and working in the field. Probably the most important credential that I have, though, is the bottom one. I'm the parent of 3 charter school students. One is currently a senior, so we're in the preparations for college, and I have 2 that are in college, so I'm paying these bills now, so I'm very familiar with tonight's topic. Okay, the agenda today, we're going to talk about 3 main areas. We're going to say, is it worth it? Is college worth it? Save, 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 an important part of having preparing yourself for college, and other sources of funds. Our Q&A section will be a little different. I'll put my email address up on the last slide, and that will allow you to send me questions if you have any. Our first slide here compares employment or earnings, average median weekly earnings, with unemployment rates. And this is 2019 data. And you can see that as you move up the scale, higher levels of education have substantially lower levels of unemployment and higher median salaries, weekly salaries. So that's real important. That shows you that there is value in a college or in advanced education. The next slide shows you historically how those unemployment rates have trended over time. And the red line is less than a high school education, less than a high school diploma. And you can see that line is consistently above the purple line, which is the high school graduate, no college, the green line, which is some college or an associate's degree, and the light blue line, which is a bachelor's degree. In all cases, whether recession or otherwise, you can see that those lines hold pretty consistently. And the bachelor's degree, even in the 08-09 recession, only went as high as about 5%. Certainly this current recession you saw on the far right of the slide, everything spiked way up, but that's a result of the shutdowns that we had, and you saw the quick recovery. But again, those lines consistently kept their place where they really didn't cross each other. You also find that person with a college education versus someone without a college education, the salary is higher for the same job. And as you can see here, for a variety of different types of jobs, the salary of that college education individual is higher across the board. One other thing of note is over time, job requirements have changed. Going back to 1991, 33% of jobs really only required, of what we call good jobs. These are jobs that for younger people pay over $35,000 a year, for people 45 and above pay over $45,000 a year. These so-called good jobs, 33% of the workforce were able to get by with just that high school education and have those good quality jobs. You fast forward to 2016, the latest data available on this, and that number has dropped down to 20% of available jobs for the high school person, whereas the college person, the total jobs available that are considered good has grown in quantity. It's doubled for the college educated individual and represents 56% of that market. Also, you can see how education has changed over time. Going all the way back to 1940, you can see roughly 88% of employees had either no high school diploma or a high school diploma. Fast forward up to the current decade, and you can see that has pretty much flipped, and now roughly 80% have some kind of college in the job force. So you're competing against people that are higher educated, making it much harder to stand up for jobs if you don't have that same level of education. Of course, everything comes with a cost, and that cost is the tuition that you're going to pay to send your child to college. And this slide shows an example of several local schools. I've got University of Central Florida, University of Florida, Lake Sumter State College, and Stetson University, so we can look at the private versus the public cost. And I'm going to comment on UCF in particular, in that UCF didn't list out a book number and really didn't list out some of the other incidental room and board related costs. So their number looks a lot smaller than University of Florida, but having a student at UCF and a student at UF, I'll tell you they're both about the same. It runs about $20,000 to $21,000 a year for everything if they're living up in the area. Lake Sumter State College is the traditional community college route, much cheaper, and this numbers here assumes living at home, so the room and board cost really is a transportation cost and other incidentals around that. But you can see it can be basically half what the four-year university cost is. And then the private university, the tuition is substantially higher, room and board roughly similar in those cases, but that can get to $64,000 in this example. And this information is right from their website, so you can go find it yourselves. Another cost associated with going to college is the delay in the time that you enter the workforce. So you go to school for 4 years, you now have 4 years where you weren't earning money, versus those who graduated high school, went straight into the workforce, or only did some college education. They're starting in the workforce sooner, so their cumulative net earnings start out earlier than the college graduate. So once that individual graduates with the bachelor's degree, they've got to kind of catch up to that lifetime earnings of those other individuals. And as you can see on this chart, that catch-up point in all cases happens at about age 35. Now, certainly these are averages. If you earn more, you're going to catch up faster. You earn less than the average, you'd catch up a little slower. And I also want to highlight, if you look at the scale on the left, it goes up to $1.2 million cumulative across a lifetime when you take that all the way out into the early 60s. And we're going to use that number shortly. Just because you get an education, an advanced education, doesn't mean you're going to earn a higher salary. However, as you can see from this chart, having a higher education gives you a higher chance of having a higher salary. So as you can see on the lower bars, primarily in the blues, the light blues, those are the lower salary ranges, versus the higher bar, the advanced degree, is primarily in the oranges and into the gray, which is the higher salaries. And you can see the higher education has wider bars in those ranges, higher percentages of odds of getting those higher salaries. Again, a small percentage won't necessarily earn the higher salaries, but you have a much greater chance of doing that if you have a higher education level. So this would be the point, if we were in a live audience, where I'd ask for a show of hands, how many in the audience would like to earn 7% on their money? And I'm going to assume everyone raises their hands, because we pretty much always get that to happen, because who wouldn't like to have 7% on their money, especially with interest rates as low as they are? So as you can see now, when you look at the cost for the college, and I've done the 2 plus 2 is 2 years at the state college or the old community college way, and then 2 years at the full university, then the in-state 4 years at the in-state university, and then the private college like we looked at for Stetson. So $20,000 a year approximately for the in-state gets you to about $80,000. You're going to work for about 40 years in your life. You have what's estimated to be a median earnings, excess earnings of $30,000 a year. $30,000 times 40 years ends up to that $1.2 million we saw on the other slide. And if I do, as a numbers person, as an investment guy, if I calculate the compound annual growth rate, the return on that investment, that $80,000 for the in-state, for instance, and that result of getting that excess of $1.2 million over the 40 years, that works out to be a 7% annual growth rate. A little higher if you spend less when you do the 2 plus 2, and lower certainly if you spend more to do the private school. But that 7% is a pretty good number, pretty good return on investment. Okay, now we'll move on to our next section, save, save, save. And save, save, save is important in any type of saving you do. Saving for retirement, saving for a house, saving for your child's education. You want to save early, you want to save often, and you want to save smart. Those are the 3 keys to success for any savings plan you want to do. We'll start out with the save early. This is all about the power of compounding, and if you have any questions on the power of compounding, you can certainly email me after this presentation, or you can just have a chat with your high schooler, because they teach this in the classes here at the charter school. So let's say you start out in year 1 with $100 and you put it in the bank and you're getting 5% interest. I know you can't get 5% now, but I like the nice round numbers. So you earn $5 on your $100 in that first year. In year 2, you now have $105 invested, earning that 5%, so you earn $5.25. You've earned interest on your interest. That's compounding. And that continues on, and by year 4, you can see you have $115.76, you're earning $5.79. The earnings grows, it compounds over time because of the interest on interest effect. Now let's talk about save early. Let's say you put that $100 away when your child is born. If you did that, and they're going to go to college at age 18, so at the end of 17 years, what you'd have left in the bank, that one deposit of $100 would earn $129.20 cumulatively across those 17 years. You'd have $229.20. However, if you waited until 5 years old, you put that $100 away, your earnings drop by about $50, and you only earn $79.59. That's about 21% less by waiting those 5 years. You lose 5 years of that compounding effect, and it has a substantial impact. Fast forward all the way to the right-hand side of the slide, the far side of the slide, and you can see if you just put the money away, when they're ready to graduate and go to college, you end up with just $100. You have no earnings. So the earlier you can save, the more chance you have that compounding effect in place. Your money earns money for you. It's working for you instead of you working for the money, and you can achieve some quality savings. So let's take that out and say, instead of doing save often, we take that out and say, instead of doing just $100 up front, you do $100 a year. So you put $100 at the beginning of each year away. So at the beginning of the first year, you put $100 in. At the end of year 1, you'd have $105. That $5 because of the 5%. Year 2, you put another $100 in. So now I have $205 that's going to earn a return. I end up with $215.25. Year 3, I end up with $331.01. By the time they turn 17, or by the end of their 17th year, you now have $2,713 saved. But you only put away $1,700. You ended up with compounding, ended up with about $1,000 in earnings gain. So that's substantial. Now let's take that one step further, and let's save a little more often. What if you did $50 a paycheck? And I'm assuming you earn a paycheck twice a month. So this would be effectively $100 a month, but you did it every paycheck, so some of it's going in earlier, more compounding, and you did that for 17 years. And as you can see from this chart, if you did that and you just put the money under the mattress or in a mason jar out in the backyard, if you can find them, I understand they're hard to come by right now as everyone's home and doing baking and things. If you did that, just doing that $50 per paycheck for those 17 years, you'd end up with over $20,000 saved for your child's college education. Now, if you can earn 5%, the number I've been using through some of the slides, that jumps up to $32,000. So you can see about a $12,000 gain from earning that interest on interest, that compounding effect. And if you could earn 8%, if you can get market returns, stock market returns, that $50 a paycheck becomes $43,000. That's substantial dollars, and that's going to help pay, go a long way towards paying for your child's college education. Okay, finally we'll talk about Save Smart. You have different ways you can save. Your options include, as I already mentioned, the mattress or the mason jars buried out back, right? You can just put the money aside and earn nothing on it. You can put it in a taxable account. You can put it in a bank account earning, unfortunately, what is very small interest because interest rates are so low right now, or put it in some kind of a taxable investment account, or you can use some tax-protected plans that were created for education. And those include the Coverdale Education Savings Account, or ESA, and the 529 plans, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. So we'll start with the Coverdale ESA, which is formerly known as the Education IRA. It kind of grew out of the same laws. In a Coverdale Education Savings Account, you're only allowed to contribute $2,000 per year per child. That's a hard cap. You can't put in more than that. There's penalties if you do. Your contributions are non-deductible, so it's different than an IRA in that perspective, and you can only contribute to this account up until the child turns 18 years old. And if you're a higher earner, there are income phase-outs that are involved. The 2019 tax year numbers, the phase-out was between $95,000 and $110,000 for an individual, or $190,000 and $220,000 for joint filers. So if you earn over that, you can't even contribute to one of these accounts. Another important fact about a Coverdale Education Savings Account is it may impact financial aid eligibility. When you fill out financial aid forms, they're trying to determine what resources the family has to pay for the child's education. And an asset such as a Coverdell Education Savings Account is an asset of that child. It belongs to them. You're just serving as the custodian until they turn 18. They could then technically take over at 18, take over the account. Being an asset of theirs, that's going to count as part of a resources that you have for financial aid eligibility, and that could reduce what your potential is for financial aid. But on the other side, the Coverdell Education Savings Account is self-directed. You can invest it how you see fit. So I did this for my kids, but then again, I work in the industry, so I was comfortable with doing the investing and managing that myself. So that's something you have to be comfortable with on this type of an account. You can use the dollars for anything from K to 12, private schools from K to 12, or for post-secondary education expenses at qualified expenses. They have to be proper levels of tuition for books, those kind of things, room and board. The other important thing on a Coverdell Education Savings Account is the account has to be used up by the time the child turns 30. Otherwise, there are penalties, and if it's not used for education purposes, there's a tax penalty. You pay 10% penalty, plus you pay tax on any of the gains in the account. So that's real important. Now, you can move money between accounts. If I am left over with some money in one of my kids' accounts, I can shift it over to one of the other kids' accounts, as long as, again, they're under 30. The 18-year-old rule doesn't apply there. You're shifting money, you're not contributing to the account. Now we switch over to the 529 plans, and 529 plans have gotten really popular because they're promoted by different states. They market them out there. They work with financial advisors to help market those plans, so they're sold as kind of a product for college savings. And there's a lot of good benefits to them. They come in two flavors. There are savings plans, and then there's prepaid tuition plans. You're free to invest in any state's plans, but there is usually some kind of a benefit or a kicker if you invest in a plan within your state, assuming your child goes to the school within that state. But if they don't, you can use the dollars. There's a formula built into them as far as how those earnings on a prepaid plan would be used in another state or be used out of the current state. Savings plans, you're just savings dollars, so it's not an issue there. Important distinction on the 529 plans are that they may not affect your financial aid eligibility for your child depending on how you title the asset. So as an example, if grandma or grandpa opens up the 529 plan for the benefit of the child, grandma and grandpa are the owners of the account for the benefit of the child that way. It's their asset. It's not the child's or the family's assets. It doesn't go on the FAFSA application. So make sure you ask good questions when you set up the account originally, and make sure you get that a good understanding so that you title it in such a way that you can maintain maximum eligibility. The account owner maintains full control, so if grandma and grandpa did that, they're the ones that control distributions, and if for some reason they decide Junior doesn't deserve the college education, or they don't like the choice of major and they say they're not going to contribute, they control that distribution. So make sure you stay on good terms with grandma and grandpa if you have them set up the account. Same thing, you can use it for K to 12 expenses and for post-secondary expenses, qualified education expenses, and that's defined in the tax code what that is. If you're so inclined, you can start a 529 plan for anybody. You can find a neighbor, or if you feel so generous, you're welcome to open up one for my senior to help pay for her college education. You can contribute money to anyone for a 529, and you can move money around between them, between different children, or again, to somebody that's not even related. There are gift limitations that falls under the gifting law as far as how contributions work, but you're not limited to $2,000. You can put substantially more amounts, and there are no income restrictions like you see on the Coverdell. There's also a new twist that was added, I think it was about a year ago, where you can actually use $529 to help pay student loan payments under a certain formula, and you can now use them for apprenticeship programs, so not just for college, which is important because college is not for everybody. Florida in particular, and this is the website, and any of the websites I reference, I have a slide at the very end that lists all the websites together so you don't have to scramble writing them down, and we're going to make the slides available to you as well. So Florida's website here, Florida offers both a prepaid savings plan, or a prepaid plan and a savings plan. The prepaid plan comes in several different versions based on what you want to pay for. And the earlier you start, because the state is allowing for compounding, the earlier you start, the cheaper it is to be able to have these things fully funded. So as an example here, these are right off the website. I pulled it yesterday, so this is current information. You have the 2-year college plan, and colleges, the old community colleges that are now known as state colleges, the 2-year college plan, the 4-year college plan. They became state colleges because they began offering 4-year degrees. The 2+2 plan starts at the state college and moves on to the state university. And then you have your option if you want to do the full 4-year university, the full-blown university outright. You can do the 4-year plan that pays for the entire 4 years at the university, or you can pay it a year at a time with the prepayment. So you get versions based on whatever your needs or your situation are. The savings plan is just a savings plan. You contribute what you want to contribute. It's invested with the options that they give you for investments, and it grows over time. And the dollars that you accumulate with the growth, with the compounding, is what you have available to pay for college in the future. And again, easy to use in a different state, whereas the prepaid has that formula to adjust it because it's based on prepaid for the Florida, guaranteeing the Florida tuition, not for out of state, so that formula comes into play if you went out of state. Okay, now we'll move on to our last section, other sources of money. Other sources come in different forms: scholarships, grants, there's work study, there's loans, and there's also tax deductions and credits that are available, and those you talk to your tax accountant for. There are also special programs in certain circumstances. If you're a veteran, there's a lot of dedicated programs. If you're going into medical training, a healthcare area, there are certain specific things available there. Teaching, there's things available for teaching, and there's also some money available if you do public service. However, everything you do in this section starts with what's called FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Financial Aid. That can be found on this website, federalstudentaid.gov. And I've got it here bookmarked where the FAFSA form is. If you go and just Google for FAFSA, you're going to get a whole bunch of listings for a bunch of sites that are happy to take money from you to help you prepare the free application for federal student aid. So don't pay for it. You still have to gather all the information. The help they're going to do is tell you what information to gather. Well, the FAFSA application kind of walks you through that and actually has a link to the IRS to import your tax information rather than you having to go dig and type it in. So they've really simplified this process quite a bit, but you've got to do this application or you're not eligible for a whole host of things. Florida also has a website, floridastudentfinancialaid.org. This lists a whole bunch of availability, and the one I've highlighted here, if you can't read it, is Bright Future Scholarship. Bright Future is a very valuable scholarship you'd like to maintain eligibility for your child. Bright Future is the lottery-funded scholarships by the state of Florida, and it comes in essentially 4 different flavors. There is the Florida Academic Scholar, the Florida Medallion Scholar, the Florida Gold Seal CAPE Scholar, and the Florida Gold Sealed Vocational Scholar. The Academic Scholar pays 100% of Florida tuition and fees, plus an additional $300 per semester for books and other miscellaneous fees. So that's pretty powerful. You know, that's basically $6,000 to $7,000 a year at a 4-year university, a state university like University of Florida. The Florida Medallion Scholar pays 75% of that tuition, doesn't give you the extra $300 kickers. And the other 2 programs, the Florida Gold Seal programs, are geared towards vocational schools. So if college is not for you, there's an option to get some dollars if you maintain eligibility for Bright Futures. If you're a Florida high school graduate, you're eligible. You have to meet certain academic requirements, and you have to enroll in a Florida public or private post-secondary institution. There is an allowance in Bright Futures if you go to a Florida private school. However, you must apply for this through this special application, the Florida Financial Aid application. This one does not use the FAFSA. You must apply for this by August 31st of the year that the child graduates high school. So if they graduate in April, you have until that August 31st. Well, don't worry, don't scramble around and try and figure out where to get this application. The charter school, the counselors come around and meet with, or they used to come around, I guess now with some of students virtual, it's done a little bit differently, but the school works with every graduating senior to get this application filled out. So that's done for you. The Florida Academic Scholar, this lists all the requirements. This is the one that pays 100%. It looks at a weighted GPA of at least 3.5, so having the right grade point average helps. You also have to have certain classes you've taken. Thank you again, charter school. all of our students have to take these required classes. It's part of their curriculum, so they're going to check these boxes off without any effort on your part. They have to do community service. For this one, you have to have at least 100 hours. Thank you again, charter school. You've required community service hours all the way along those high school years for our students, so they're going to meet this requirement if they've met the school's requirement. And then you have to have certain scores on the SAT and ACT, and that, from what I've seen, tends to be the hardest one for the students to work at. So make sure they practice and prepare and really work towards that SAT score. There are other ways to qualify in certain cases, and I would direct you to the Florida website for that to look those up. Also important to note that anything with Bright Futures can change every year. The legislature, when they meet, they can decide to make changes. If you go back, I think it was about 4 years ago, this one didn't cover 100%. It only covered about 75%. They decided to up it a little bit. Long ago, it used to cover 100%, and then they downed it a little bit. So it can change year after year. And in fact, the SAT scores went up effective this year, or slightly higher levels than they were in the past. So they raised the dollars, but raised the bar to be able to get the dollars. The second level, the Florida Medallion Scholar, the one that covers 75%, has those same education requirements, has a slightly lower weighted GPA average of 3.0, and slightly lower SAT and ACT scores, and slightly lower community service requirements, again, all covered by the charter school requirements. And then the Florida Gold Seal Vocational covers up to $48 per credit hour, looks at a 3.0 weighted GPA, so that GPA is important, looks at certain courses again, and has test scores. You have SAT, ACT, or PERT as an option for test scores. And again, subject to change like any of these. All right, we'll move on to grants. Grants are really, really good because grants don't have to be paid back. Just like the scholarship to Bright Futures, it's not something you have to pay back. The most common grant, the one most people have heard of, is the federal Pell Grant. This is a needs-based grant, and again, draws from that FAFSA application. All these grants, if you don't do the FAFSA, you're not eligible for them. If you do the FAFSA, you are 100% eligible for these. So it's important to go out there and do that FAFSA application, complete it timely, and be eligible for these. And a lot of schools will offer scholarships, especially the private schools, but they will pull from the FAFSA to see if there's a need, to see if you meet any of their criteria internally. Work-study program is also an option. Your child can get a job. The official work-study program is done through the FAFSA, and if your child is eligible and willing and checks off the box in that application, they're eligible. They may get a job on campus doing something. That's kind of a work-study program that is very flexible, working around their school hours. They can always get a job off campus doing something in the private sector, working fast food, working retail, working something, wherever they can earn some dollars to help pay for college costs. But this is the official program. It goes through the FAFSA. And it's another non-loan way to cover college expenses. Finally, I'll direct you back to that studentaid.gov website. This is the generic homepage. The other slide directed you specifically to the FAFSA, but it's found at the same place. When you go through the FAFSA, you're going to be eligible for different types of financial aid, and all that information and a whole bunch of other college-related information can be found at this federal student aid website, including lending. The loans, which are the most common form of financial aid that's awarded, have the problem that they have to be paid back, right? You borrow money, you got to pay it back. And unfortunately, we hear horror stories of students that have borrowed lots of money and are struggling to pay that back because of either a low-paying job or having no job or borrowed way too much. Whatever the case is, they got to pay this back. So of the 3 different loan types listed on this slide, the subsidized loan is the most important one. That's the one you want if you're going to go the loan path. It's fixed rate interest. Right now that rate is 2.75%, fixed over the life of the loan. It's subsidized in that the federal government is paying the interest. There's no interest accumulation while you're in school. The interest accumulation and the repayment doesn't begin until 6 months after you've stopped going to school, at least part-time, at least half-time. Unsubsidized loans, those are the kind of what I call the dark side of compounding. And I've got my Darth Vader on there. Unsubsidized loans, you don't have to start paying them back until 6 months after you stop going part-time, the half-time level. But all during that time, if it takes 4 years or 5 years to graduate, you're accumulating interest. So you borrow $10,000, you graduate, and you think, I got to pay back $10,000? No, you got to pay back a lot more because you've been accumulating interest on that balance. So that one can actually grow in balance. And there's also the Parent Plus loan. The Parent Plus loan is not an obligation of the student, it's actually an obligation of the parent. You're putting yourself on the line to pay for your child's college education. They come at a higher interest rate, and again, if you're trying to save for retirement, now you're straddling yourself with another loan. So, it's a matter of balancing things out. Your student is younger, let them take out the loan, let them take care of that, let their earnings pay for that education that they took out if you have to go the loan route. This is my moment where I kind of step onto the soapbox and give a little lecture. All jobs are not created equal. There's different earnings in each job, and there's nothing wrong with any of these jobs. If you choose to go into elementary education, second from the bottom on this list, the median salary listed here, and this was a couple years ago, was $37,000 a year. Nothing wrong with that. It's a wonderful career, and that's a decent earnings. But if you choose to go to a private liberal arts college and borrow $50,000 a year to go to that private school and graduate with $200,000 worth of debt, $37,000 a year, you're saddled with a mortgage before you even get started in life. Go to the public school, find the different programs and grants that are out there, pay far less money for that degree so that your debt level, if you go the loan route, is more commensurate with the potential earnings down the road. If you go and become the petroleum engineer, the one on the top of the list, and you borrowed $100,000, well, your salary can pay that out in 1 year. Obviously, you're not going to pay it in 1 year, but you can pay that debt off a lot quicker. You're not strapped for decades trying to pay down what is essentially a mortgage right out of school. So just kind of keep that in mind. College is job training. It's not an experience. We often hear about college being an experience. It's job training. Keep in mind what the job is and what the salaries are relative to how much you're going to spend. That's the investor in me, the risk, the return on your investment. A few other websites to look at where you can find other scholarships that are available. There's one known as fastweb.com. Fastweb is kind of like a dating site, but for scholarships. Your child creates a profile. The profile then will go in and match them against other scholarships, kind of like date matching, right? And make recommendations for them to apply for these different scholarships. So it's a pretty simple process. Once you create your profile, it's in there, and you're just essentially clicking a button to go apply. But you got to click the button. You got to actually take the time to do that to apply for these scholarships. Every year we hear about scholarships where there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 people that apply, and maybe all of them get some money. If more people apply, just think of how many chances you should have. The more you apply, it's kind of a numbers game. The more things you can apply for, the more likelihood you're going to get some of these scholarship dollars. Another example site is scholarships.com. Same kind of thing. You'll create a profile and you search for different scholarships. So that's another one to watch for. And if you just did kind of a general search on Google for unusual scholarships, you'll get all kinds of unique ones. I kind of like this one, the Chick and Sophie Major Memorial Duck Calling Contest. Whoever does the best duck call gets $2,000. There's a Tall Clubs International for very tall students. There's athlete scholarships. As a Star Trek fan, there's a Starfleet Academy Scholarship. One of my all-time favorites is the Zombie Apocalypse Scholarship. You write an essay talking about how you would survive the zombie apocalypse, and if you're picked, you can get $2,000. And probably the best one, just because I can't believe they do this, is the Duck Brand Duct Tape Stuck at Prom Contest. So here's from the current website. These are, the top 2 are the winners this year. Those are dresses and tuxes made entirely out of different colored duct tape. The one in the middle, the one that won for the best dress this year, I really like the coronavirus purse that she made, all out of duct tape. These people put in tons and tons of hours to these costumes, these outfits, and they can win a scholarship for doing that. So break out the duct tape and get working. Finally, there's Florida website, floridashines.org. This is a Florida-based site that is just a good overall information site on colleges, programs, paying for college, the 12 different universities we have around the state. You can get information. Kind of a good place to go as a good catch-all of information. It's a good starting point, especially if you're going to stay within Florida. And lastly, we have the charter school website, another resource that the charter school has done to help your child succeed. If you go out to the charter school website, click on high school, and then click on the college scholarships financial aid link, you'll find a listing of a bunch of local resources for scholarships. And there is tons and tons of money that's given out locally. All you got to do is apply. So get your child up out of the chair, get them off their Netflix streaming, and get them out there onto the website looking at these different scholarships and applying. There are ones for music, there are ones for medical, there's ones for all kinds of different directed things. Sable Trust even contributes to scholarship every year. So there's tons and tons of money given away. There's the Buffalo Scholarship Foundation that gives away tens of thousands of dollars a year. Go out and apply on these different things. And if you have questions, also if you go to the high school website and you click on guidance, you'll see here, and I've listed by the last name, the letter of the last name, which guidance counselor you want to reach out to, but there's a whole host of information, and they can be found on this site, a whole host of information that you can talk to about the guidance counselors to make sure you're doing the right things and making sure you're eligible for these different things we've talked about today. Well, that's our agenda. We covered quite a broad area from saving to if it's worth it to savings and then sources of money. Can't do Q&A in this virtual environment, but I did put up my email address. Feel free to email me with your questions. Just be real clear in the title, question on the college savings or something like that so I know what it's in reference to. And I'll get back to you. If I'm busy, it may take me a day or two, but I will get back to you. I answer everyone's questions. Lastly, I put up the slide with all the useful websites. Again, this is out there, but I've put them in one place, so if you want to print one thing out as a reference tool, you can have this. So thank you again, and good luck with your child as they move forward onto the next phase of their life.
Hello, and for the elementary school, October was Fire Safety Month, and we want to say a big thank you to the village's Fire and Safety Department. They continue their great partnership with us to help our boys and girls learn all about fire safety and to make sure they have a plan at home. And we're so thankful that even in this special time that we have going on in our country, that the fire truck was able to come, and our kindergarten and first graders got to still experience that firsthand. And we have completed our progress monitoring for the first time for the school year, our session 1 for it. And we do have tutoring going on after school for all of our grade levels. So thank you, parents, for making sure your children stay for that if they showed that they needed that in reading and or math. And we had a very successful book fair at the 4th and 5th grade center in October. So thank you for supporting our library and making sure the boys and girls have great books to read and helping them to become better readers. And we're certainly continuing our health and safety protocols. A shout out to our boys and girls. They really are doing a good job with wearing their mask and washing their hands, and we just got to keep it up. So hopefully everything gets better before long. And of course, our number one focus is learning each and every day. We want everybody in school. We want everyone well. It's our wishes that everyone be at school, and the boys and girls at home learning right now are well and learning. I just want you to know we are trying to make it fun as well. I'm not reporting on any field trips as I usually do, but that's okay because our first priority right now is to be learning and growing, and they are having fun. We visit the classrooms frequently, and they are working hard and still collaboratively learning within the room, within our safety protocols. So thank you for your support.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November online Buffalo Pride meeting. I'm Peggy Irwin, the middle school principal, and there's always lots going on at the middle school. All of our fall sports have passed, volleyball, football, and now we're gearing up for girls basketball. So if you have a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader that's interested in participating, tryouts are occurring, and we're looking forward to our first home game, which will be November 19th at Wildwood. Also, just a reminder, parents, we are now into the second quarter. We're now 3 weeks into the second quarter, and it's very important that you stay on top of your students and they're checking their grades in Skyward. Some students had a rocky ending to the end of the first quarter, so they have a little ground to make up. And for those of you that are online, please make sure that you are also checking those grades regularly and making sure that the students are submitting their work and that the grades are going up, and looking good. Also, just a reminder, even for my online parents, attendance. If your child has a doctor's appointment or dentist appointment, something like that, and they're in the Buffalo e-learning model, they do need to have an excused absence. You need to submit a note to Kelly Gardner, who is our attendance person, and she will mark anything excused for those doctors, dentist, and orthodontic appointments. So just make sure that you submit those to her. And again, we're looking forward to a great second quarter, very positive. The Pick My Kid app continues to be a very good thing and is running smoothly. So we thank parents for all of their cooperation with that. I love walking through Carline and seeing everybody flash the student number. It makes things very easy. And again, we just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving at the end of this month.
Good evening. School is continuing to go well at VHS, and we've just completed the first 9 weeks with a record number of students, 1,006 students here at VHS. We still have about 65% of our students in the building, with the remainder of the students online in eBuffalo Learning or in Option 3, which is our partnership with Florida Virtual School. Teachers are working hard to make sure that students are continuing to receive a top-notch education and constantly honing their online learning skills and techniques. Students are still doing an excellent job of following our new safety protocols and procedures. They're wearing their masks, they're washing hands during designated times, using hand sanitizer when necessary, and practicing social distancing when possible. Temperatures are still being taken before school by every student that enters the building, and we continue to follow the rotating modified block schedule to help reduce transition times throughout the day. Our FSA retakes have been completed for English Language Arts, Writing, Biology, and Algebra 1, and we are waiting eagerly for scores to be reported from the state. PSAT tests are complete, and ACT and SAT tests are consistently administered on Saturdays. Please check the VHS website for future dates of ACT and SAT tests. If you have any questions, please contact your student's guidance counselor or administration for other information and specific details. The VHS Health Science students, the Construction Academy, the Agri-Science Academy, Culinary Arts, and Business and Banking Academies are all continuing to do their on and off-campus activities. Health Science students are cycling through their clinical rotations. The Construction Academy have the walls in place on their third house build that's in collaboration with Habitat for Humanity. The Agri-Science students continue to work off campus at the farm. Culinary Arts Academy are preparing meals that teachers can order on Thursdays and Fridays. And Business and Banking students are gaining on-the-job experience at Citizens First Bank alongside their mentors. Fall sports are winding down. Football, volleyball, cross country, golf, bowling, and swim all have experienced successful seasons. Winter sports are gearing up as coaches prepare and students are conditioning for the upcoming season of boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer, wrestling, girls weightlifting, and competitive cheer and dance. Our student athletes are working hard in the classroom and in the competition arena. Make sure you get out to a game and support our student athletes. Battle on, Buffalo!